Mark Feinsand rejoins us with, I guess, a big picture conversation, Mark, on the free agent and trade market as it relates to starting pitchers. So for somebody just helicoptering into this hot stove season, why don't you reset what we already know, who's already been assigned a uniform for 2021, and then we'll get to the guys on the market.
Yeah, well, I think this all starts. I think when you talk about the starting pitching market, it all goes back to Marcus Stroman and Kevin Gausman accepting those qualifying offers, which, everybody said, well, I wonder why they did that. Maybe it wasn't, they could have gotten multi-years. But now we see one-year deals are the trend this year. We've talked about this before. Charlie Morton getting that one-year $15 million deal. Drew Smyly getting the one-year $11. Robbie Ray coming off of a bad year getting one for $8. And then this week, Mike Minor becomes the first one to get a multi-year deal, also coming off of a very bad season for him. So 2 for 18 there. I think when you look at the fact that so many teams around the league need pitching so badly, right? You're looking at teams right now, the Angels, the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Mets, the Red Sox, Giants, White Sox, Padres are all very heavily into the pitching market looking for pitching. There aren't that many starting pitchers on the free agent market that are going to fill those voids to what those teams are looking for. You've got Jake Odorizzi, you've got Masahiro Tanaka, you've got Taijuan Walker. Obviously, you have Trevor Bauer as the top guy on that list. But then I think teams are going to start looking at the trade market. We know Sagano is going to be posted by Yomiuri. There's another guy who could be an impact pitcher, but there aren't that many of them. And that's why I think of any market in free agency this year, starting pitching they're going to do pretty well.
So let's hit you on one of the names on the market right now that I find most fascinating. That's Masahiro Tanaka, right? Just completed his age 32 season, or just turned 32, actually. Completed his age 31 season. Younger than some may have guessed, based on the innings that he pitched in Japan. When you combine his major league innings with his Japanese professional league innings, you're talking about 2,600-ish innings. And for a guy who's had an elbow ligament allegedly dangling from a thread for years, yet has been super effective and reliable, it's really impossible to kind of gauge the direction of the market for somebody like that. Where, if any place other than the Bronx, would there be interest in Tanaka?
I think any one of those teams I just mentioned that are looking for a starting pitcher, look at Masahiro Tanaka as a viable option to fill, that number 2 or 3 spot in their rotation. I think what's going to be very important in the Tanaka market, any team who's going to sign him is going to want to give him a physical, going to want to do an MRI on that elbow. We've been talking since 2014, his rookie year, describing his elbow as a ticking time bomb, right? He had that partial tear of the UCL his rookie year when he was, the best pitcher in baseball that first few months. And we wondered, just how bad is it? Well, a team that wants to sign him as a free agent will be able to find out what that MRI looks like. I've heard it described as a 5% tear, a 10% tear, but since 2014, it hasn't been an issue for him again. So, I think how that MRI on his elbow looks will be the determining factor on how well he does in this free agent market.
I tell you, it's going to be real interesting. It's multiple suitors with a single one-year deal. With the one-year deal on the table, there's going to be a lot of clubs wanting all these pitchers, right? But when you get past 1 year, then we'll see how many teams are really interested, because we are definitely in that one-year market. Trevor Bauer, Matt, is really the key here, I think, for will he take a multi-year deal? He's really the only true free agent out there that I think teams go, we'll give you a multi-year deal, and it's locked in, etched in stone. Other than that, I really think most teams are going to be wading in that one-year water and seeing how we get through all this stuff.
Well, I think Odorizzi and Tanaka are both going to get multi-year deals. Odorizzi for sure. Taijuan Walker probably as well. The rest of the starting pitching market, we could be looking at a bunch of one-year deals. I think what you may see in some of the multi-year deals, and I'm not necessarily talking about Bauer, you may see lower salaries in the first year as teams account for the potential of more revenue losses for the pandemic in 2021 and backload those contracts. They all count the same AAV-wise for the CBT tax, but in terms of actually paying out money, you could see a little bit of a lower salary in the first year of a contract and let them backload it to try to help them out in that aspect. But, like I said, there aren't that many top pitchers available beyond the ones that we've mentioned, which makes guys like Lance Lynn and Sonny Gray and Blake Snell even more appealing on the trade market. Lynn, I think everybody assumes is going to be traded. Snell and Gray are in that sort of could be traded, might not be traded area. But if a team misses out on one of these other free agents and really needs a frontline starter, their GM might be willing to overpay in a trade for a guy like Snell or a guy like Sonny Gray.
If it's hard to predict the free agent starting pitching market, it's harder to predict the trade market for starting pitchers. So you talked about some of the players that could be there. What about some of the acquiring parties? And when you mentioned the Padres, you mentioned some of the teams that are looking in a general sense. Are there any lines we can draw between a specific team and a specific trade target?
Well, I always just draw targets between the Mariners and the Rays because Eric Neander and Jerry Dipoto make about 2 or 3 trades a year, so it seems. But I'm not sure that's going to be a matchup for Snell. You look at the teams with the top prospect lists, and when you're talking about a guy like Blake Snell, you're going to have to give up 2 or 3 really, really solid, assets in order to obtain a guy like him. So, you wonder, how desperate is a team? I mean, the Angels are in a situation right now where they have to get a pitcher, right? So if they miss out on Bauer, and let's say they miss out on Odorizzi or Taijuan Walker, like they have to look at the trade market to bring in a starting pitcher. You would think. I would imagine there's a lot of pressure on the new front office out there to bring in some pitching to try to get Mike Trout back to the playoffs. So, there are certain teams that are sort of in the beginning of their window. There are certain teams that are right in the prime. It'll be really interesting to see which ones get aggressive, because if you're going to go get Blake Snell, if you're going to go get Sonny Gray, you're going to pay. You're going to pay a hefty price for either one of those guys.
Mark Feinsand with the free agent and trade market for starting pitchers on this Wednesday, with the non-tender deadline coming up tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. Mark, thanks.